pour moun qui a suivi live ensemble avec nous sur Télépam et One Chopam et Plaisir Pam Radio Télé Montagne. On a rappelé là nous devant Caraïbe Créole, nous dans zone Dixia. Côté de Caraïbe Créole là, lui-même, il est tombé et à tes plats, mais jusqu'à présent, nous pouvons gagner aucune information qui est pour moi de confirmer est-ce que il y a des gens qui étaient en Caraïbe Créole. On n'a pas besoin de Caraïbe Créole là, c'est au bas et côté de
Guys, that looks like a mess. For those of you who have not heard, Haiti was hit with a 7.2 magnitude earthquake. Their entire buildings, multi-story buildings, basically did what they did in Florida, but a whole chunk of the city did it at once. This is what, a month after they lost their president in a assassination attempt. Hey, Monique. Hey, Klingon. Hey, Joe. I'm glad you guys could make it. Haiti can't catch a break this year, guys. These poor folks. I mean, this is heartbreaking. So for those of you who may just be learning about this, the Oceanographic Institute put out a tsunami warning. They actually have a variety of beaches saw the water suddenly recede. And when they say recede, it went like 50, 100 yards out. Just right after the earthquake, the water just went thump, which isn't uncommon. When you have an earthquake, especially in that area, typically what you'll do is you'll have I think those faults are normal faults, so they're kind of at an angle. When they shift like that, you figure there's a chunk of earth drops. Even if it only drops 6 inches or 3 inches, imagine the volume of water. Hey, Prepared for Life, how are you? The volume of water that suddenly gets shifted in the ocean. And so, yeah, they were reporting that the water in some of the beaches in Haiti, in the Dominican Republic, Cuba, various other areas, the water suddenly, people are on the beach and all of a sudden the water just go thump like somebody pulled the drain in a tub. So if you have family or anyone vacationing down there, keep in mind these types of earthquakes will actually, it radiates in different directions. So we got another video here. A link was sent to me by a friend of mine, and I'll share that here in a second just so you guys can see, get a feel for what's going on with these poor folks. Of course. I really hate that crap. There we go. Sorry about that. This happened earlier today, Monique. So as you can see, that place looks like a bomb went off. So right now they're counting 250 approximately. Obviously, and this is a classic example of a natural SHTF. Unlike the hurricanes that I dealt with in Houston, or even tornadoes, which they do appear quickly, but you typically see the storm fronts coming. These, something like that is out of nowhere. Right now I'm here in California, and I can't confirm this. It is personal. I love those ads by Google. Yeah. It's ads are such a pain in the ass. Right now, California is stating that they're under watch for a possible earthquake on their side. Now, I don't know how they get on an earthquake watch. I guess the seismographs indicate very deep earth movement, and then they kind of predict, okay, it'll come to surface. But in any case, yeah, this is a bad deal. These folks can't seem to catch a break this year. After the president was assassinated, the police commanders and the military were trying to read that a hurricane is supposed to hit Haiti Monday. Yes, there is a hurricane. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Klingon. Let me see if I can. Okay, my mouse suddenly decided it no longer functions. Isn't that awesome? Hashtag batteries, right? I do believe there is a tropical storm Fred somewhere out there, and I will try to see if I can find it. I'm glad you mentioned it because I just saw this, and I hadn't thought about it. Yes, there is a tropical storm warning for Puerto Rico. Oh, for crying out loud. Yeah, you weren't joking there. Hey, not my name. Not my home, sorry. Sorry about that. So there we go again. So tropical storm, good Lord. Yep, that's gonna go right over Puerto Rico, Cuba, and into, so our friend Gray Man over in Florida, I'm sure he's plenty ready for it, but that's another hit these folks are going to have to deal with. So they've got literally their leadership has been killed not a couple of weeks ago, and now lo and behold, now they have not only a typhoon or a tropical storm headed their way, but they just got hit with a massive earthquake. Parts of the country are decimated right now. So if you have friends or family out there, reach out to them, especially folks who are vacationing. A lot of folks stopped vacationing in Haiti after they assassinated the president last month. But if they're in adjacent areas around the Gulf of Mexico, remember the earthquake is a seismic epicenter, and it typically will occur across a fault line, but it'll emanate from there. So any disturbance in the water that may manifest itself as a wave or a tsunami elsewhere, it may take a few hours for that ripple of water to go across and strike whatever it is. So, that doesn't rule out parts of Mexico or Florida getting hit with, abrupt tsunami-like events. So, yeah, these folks are not having a great time there. So they seem to be getting the brunt of it. Folks, this is a good example of and I think there have been several channels have had this debate about bugging in versus bugging out. The smart thing typically is to try to bug in. It's where your home is, your neighbors, your stuff, and then go mobile if you have to. This is one of those cases you would have to go mobile. Assuming you even have a house left. If the house is collapsed, you have a whole different problem. But a flood, a tornado, a hurricane, something like that, you may have to leave. So, guys, this is, we're in the midst of hurricane season, September, October in particular lately. In the last 5-6 years has been very active in the Gulf of Mexico. So be mindful of your preparedness and your ability to leave. Make sure you have your documents ready. Make sure your vehicle's in good shape. Make sure you have a destination to go to. If you, if you're going to leave, it usually helps to say, hey, I'm going to Joe's house, or I'm going to Tom's house, or Sarah, or whoever, and let multiple people know, hey, I'm leaving the house, I'm going here. It should take me 8 hours. Now, obviously, in an evacuation situation, whatever your normal travel time is, multiply it by 3 to 5, because that's going to be what it turns out to be. But at least people know you're headed a certain way. If you don't show up, someone can go from that destination backwards to try to locate you. But in any case, be ready and be mindful of situations like this where you may have to go. You may not have much of a choice. That this is again a classic example. Even though your bugging out may be your last option, it may ultimately come to it. So it has to be an accepted reality. There should be some trigger points in your mind or in your plan where you say, okay, if the following things happen, I'm going to have to leave because I don't have a choice. Don't do what I saw people do in Rita. They all evacuated at the same time because there was like this large general panic, and more people died on the road in accidents and car fires and overheating in vehicles that ran out of gas than they did in the storm, which was silly. That wasn't necessary. So, be ready for those contingencies. And that's why a lot of us say, make sure your vehicle has some sufficient gas, make sure it's in good running shape, and you have a few destinations you can go to if you have to get out of here. You don't want to find out at the last minute that, well, shoot, I gotta go. I don't have my preps organized in such a way that I can leave. I don't have my papers printed out. The internet's down, so I can't pull up documents. Make sure you have your stuff squared away. So, and watch out for squatters. Yeah, now this is true, and Not My Home brings an interesting point. Depending on your state, if you leave your property and come back, now I know Texas is like you have to be out of the property like for an X number of years, but you could come home and find someone else in your residence. I actually saw that happen during one of the hurricanes in my subdivision where I lived in Houston, where it was an older gentleman. He was sick, so his family came and took him. And the housemaid, he had like a lady who came and helped clean the house because he was old, moved her family into his house, and they were there for months. And nobody realized it because they wouldn't leave. They wouldn't leave the house during the day so people would notice. And then finally, the reason everyone noticed is a child came out in Pampers only and was running down like a 4-lane street. And someone stopped. They're like, what the heck? And they grabbed this kid and they called the police because, you just found the kid. And then as the cops investigated, they found out that while the family had evacuated, the home workers and their extended family moved into the house without permission and had actually kind of trashed the house. So yeah, obviously that's a risk, but you have to weigh it against the danger of being killed in some kind of event. And Joe, another important point Joe Morgan brings up is you may not be able to leave, right? You may have family that is unhealthy or require certain care. So in that case, you may have to prep. Do you have batteries for any machinery they may need? Do you have extra meds? You just have to double down on the bugging in if you don't feel you can evacuate. Now, Joe, you could check some of the local ambulance services, like the private corps. Some of them, if you arrange in advance, and I don't know how it works exactly, will reach out to certain people. Like if you pay whatever fee, and they'll know to go and get you. I saw a picture on the news when Katrina. Yeah. What's funny is they were condemning people protecting their homes with firearms. There are guardsmen that I knew, some that I served with, that had gone there, and they said it was a Wild West. They said you didn't see it on the news, a little bit on the news, but there were guys were taking pot shots at the guardsmen. They were taking pot shots at the cops, whatever cops were left. They fired at some Marines. They had some Marines from the Belle Chase Naval Station had come into the city. And it's always a stupid idea to shoot at Marines in an emergency. That's just dumb. But yeah, they did. So yeah, again, you may have to double down on bugging in. What you may also want to consider, if you have someone who cannot leave the home, you may want to consider, if you can, have somebody who may come back if they allow you to return with supplies and say, okay, I got to leave. My family's leaving. You're staying because, mom or dad are sick, or you have a relative who's sick. As soon as I get my family settled, I'm going to pick up A, B, and C supplies, pre-agreed, and try to come back and resupply you if I can. So at least you have some kind of semblance of a plan. A neighbor or trusted friend or family member who you can rely on. But yeah, there are going to be some cases you may not be able to leave, and I'm too old to go anywhere. Be quiet. Yeah. And that's your other option. If you have to stay, be inconspicuous, be as uninteresting as possible, because that'll be in your best interest. But speaking of bugging in and bugging out, some folks may be forced to bug away. So I guess Friday, and I didn't see this when it first came out, the Remain in Mexico court ruling is a win for Texas and Missouri. Okay, and Joe's already thinking along those lines. Right, you have a logistics chain that you can rely on, even if it's just them storing stuff for you because you don't have the room. Actually, not a bad idea if it's a very rare item like a diabetes med or something like that. Have someone else store something for you so not all of that product is in one location. Because, a fire could just as easily destroy it as a looter. But this one's interesting. The ruling found that the termination of the Remain in Mexico ruling has been found to have contributed to the border surge. Imagine that. And that the Biden administration cannot not enforce the Trump era policy where immigrants who are seeking asylum have to remain in their native country or in Mexico or somewhere else until they've been cleared, at which point they can then come over and begin their process. So it orders the Biden administration to enforce and implement MPP in good faith until it has been lawfully rescinded. So basically, Congress has to lawfully remove it. The president can't. The president, as the executive branch, we have a plan. Okay. No one goes to Missouri. Yeah, I don't know why Missouri got in there. I was wondering about that. But apparently you look at the judge's ruling down here at the bottom, and it's the state of Texas, state of Missouri versus Joseph R. Biden Jr., a defendant. So essentially, this is a law, right? And as the executive branch is charged with enforcing laws. What they cannot do is simply decide not to enforce something at all. Now, this doesn't mean, and Joe, if you have a plan with neighbors you trust to lock down a part of your apartment or subdivision wherever you live, yeah, that adds a lot of value. Those are good tips, guys, if you're not seeing what Joe's throwing out there. In any case, basically, the president cannot choose not to do his job, is what the court's kind of saying. You have to enforce this law until it's no longer a law, but that's gonna have to go through Congress. That, I believe, not my name, that was the United States District Court in Amarillo. So, yeah, that was a federal court made that ruling. It also states nothing in this injunction requires DHS to take any immigration or removal action, nor withhold a statutory discretion towards any individual that it would not otherwise take. So basically, you have to move forward and you have to enforce the law, but the agents and the local commanders on the Border Patrol have a leeway to say, okay, you may legitimately be in trouble. We need to bring you in, and you need to wait because you're not in that big a bind. So we'll see where that goes. This is also a human trafficking issue. Hey, Sarah, how are you? I've only driven through Missouri. It was pretty, but oh no, I take that back. I did. My my son was stationed there for a little bit, and we went to visit him, and that was really pretty country. That's where I also realized that you want a good engine in some parts of the hills in Missouri, because if you have a wimpy rental, you're not going to get up and down those hills. You'd think you would, but no. It was really pretty there. The forests were really nice. But in any case, yeah, apparently the Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt said in a statement, today's massive win was a crucial re-implementing of migrant protection protocols. And Ken Paxton, the Attorney General here in Texas, said, together we sued and just handed Biden yet another major loss. So basically, the court said it's a law, you have to enforce it until such time it's either expired or it gets rescinded. So that kind of punts the football to the state. Whether they'll actually be aggressive in pursuing it is another question. But that was that's interesting, and I didn't see that yesterday when it first came out. But yeah, it looks like they're trying to get them to enforce the laws that are supposed to happen. And actually, speaking of trafficking, another Prince Andrew. Let's talk about Prince Andrew, because he's got some problems. So the young lady that everyone saw in the photo with Epstein, a young blonde woman at the time, she was 17, 16. And she's seen in various photos with Epstein, obviously not nude photos, just they're attired, but with several players within the Epstein trafficking entity, if you will. So she was known as someone who was in there. Sorry, wrong. There we go. Prince Andrew has few options for restoring his reputation after his lawsuit. Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre sues Prince Andrew. So he's now being sued personally by one of the victims. It's not okay. No, it's not okay. And I thought this was a good segue, talking about the border situation and a lot of trafficking that we all know goes on there. But so they had this hearing, and Prince Andrew kind of crawfished his way out of it originally. So that young lady who's seen in the pictures with Prince Andrew and Epstein and different people, she personally is suing Prince Andrew for harm and abuse, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know exactly what the details are, but it says, as far as his already tattered public image is concerned, the damage to Andrew is irreparable, and his legal team's strategy has been puzzling silence. His legal team's probably sitting there going, what the hell? So yeah, but this whole Epstein and trafficking thing, it's still sucking powerful people in, which I kind of find is ironic. That's arguably the right course, because his legal predicament may not be as dire as it looks, owing to the intricacies of international law. Regardless, there is no good outcome to this for Prince Andrew. The best option for him is not to make anything worse. His lawyers know this, and he is being advised by that the legal process is bristling with complexities. So Virginia Roberts Giuffre, now 38, accuses Andrew of sexually abusing her at Epstein's mansion in 2001 when she was only 17 years old. Yeah, and that's a good point. So many distractions, and yet the people in power are the ones that are getting, all of a sudden, every now and then they get caught, and everyone says, "Wow, what happened there?" But yeah, there's weasel out of it like a lot of them do. He might. I'm not sure. The complexities, the legalities there. If you're trying to sue someone from another country, what does that do for you? But in any case, yeah, that's a bit of a mess. And so he's not, that is not a good situation for him. At the very least, any future endeavors he was going to get involved with are going to be limited. You notice you're seeing a lot of these powerful folks are starting to get caught with hookers, with teenage girls or teenage boys, as the case may be. I don't know if it's because the reporters are pushing harder to get these stories, or these powerful people are just so arrogant that they think they can do whatever and really don't think that someone's actually going to out them. So I don't know how you want to angle that, but yeah, what happened to a lot of these young women was awful. So anyway, it sounds like he's got a whole new situation going on with him, and more power to him for being a jerk. I'll get to this one, and this is something a lot of people have talked about, and I kind of kept quiet because I have they do need to get caught. At the very least, I wonder if they're powerful or turning against each other, better their own position. That's possible. Keep in mind, there's always power struggles in the emperor's palace, behind the emperor. So Cuomo, out of nowhere, America's favorite, go get the Pope guy, and I run my mayor, my governor, and whatever, and all of a sudden, he resigns after getting beat up for a month because he was touchy. If this was America, he would have. Yeah, he probably would. At the very least, he'd get eviscerated in the news. I'm sure the British news is having a field day with this too. But yeah, it makes you wonder what the deal is. Prince Andrew gets a hit, Cuomo gets a hit. It's like somebody's jockeying to be king of the world. And I don't say that sarcastically. Yeah, no, and that's good. You kind of distance. The only reason I point these out is because stuff like this, when leaders fall, there becomes a vacuum. And this is more for awareness. Obviously, none of us can do anything about stupid Prince Andrew or Cuomo. But when you see a leader get knocked out of his or her position, there's a vacuum. And typically, there are entities around that vacuum try to fill it. This goes back to the ancient days. If Nefertiti went and killed one of the young pharaoh's kids, well, who would now be next in line for the throne? And it's the same here. Who's next in line for the Iron Throne? This is important stuff to pay attention to. You can't do anything about it. It's one of those more situational awareness things. But you want to know who's going to come up behind that first person, because you may get someone much worse than you ever bargained for, someone out in the wings. Right now, let's look at the presidency. Yeah, vacuums can be even more dangerous. And then it can even go to outright fighting, which is exactly what was going on in Haiti before the earthquake. You had cartels were trying to consolidate power because the military had no president to give them orders. So then the military was doing its own thing. Then the people started forming militias. Same thing happened in South Africa for about a month. They were just, when the local cops are going to the people and say, we're going to have to board up the entire town and make our own fort out of our town, and we're all running out of bullets, that's a bad situation. There's a vacuum there. So yeah, I'm just curious to see, with him out, I guess who would be in line for royalty if, what's his name, Harry renounced his position or whatever, he went into exile, his self-exile. I guess his not Andrew, his brother, Philip. I don't know. I'm confused. But anyway, I'm gonna start kind of paying attention to that guy, wondering, okay, what's your angle? If you become King of England, what's your soapbox going to be, and how will that affect me over here in the States? So it's good stuff to know. It's complicated. It's hard to keep a track of, but this is another good example of a power vacuum. So the U.S. has been there, what, 20 years? We went in 03, 04. When did, so the Rangers were there in 02, 03. The Navy stationed offshore 03, 04. So yeah, it would be William then George. Thank you, Monique. So this, we've been there, what, 18, 20 years. And we finally said, look, we can't be here forever. And we started withdrawing. And basically the Mazar-e-Sharif, which is the large town just outside of the capital of Kabul, has fallen to the Taliban. So the federal government troops have all retreated to it's basically like Hunger Games. They've all retreated to the capital district, and they're kind of hunkered down there. Right now, there were 800 U.S. military, mainly Marines, embassy Marines, and various types of Navy support in the embassy and American compounds before this happened. They are now sending multiple units, including units from various bases here. My understanding is it will be 2 Marine Expeditionary Forces, one which was conveniently already in the Sea of Oman. The other one is cruising across the Mediterranean, as well as an army unit. And the quickest army unit I could think of to get into the country with what they need is going to be airborne, one of the airborne units. So Canada's trying to offer 20,000 Afghans who had assisted NATO in their mission, like the translators and their families, refuge in Canada, but they can't get them out fast enough. The cities are getting overrun faster than our friends can get the hell out, and they're executing everyone who helped us over there. So it's been horrendous. I think we don't know the half of what's going on right now. It's supposed to be a total of, let's see, the last major city in northern Afghanistan fell to the Taliban on Saturday night, which would have been yesterday night our time, or overnight. It's one of the last 3 major cities that had remained under government control. Comes just a day after 2 key cities in southern and western Afghanistan also lost to the Taliban. Here's a great map that I'm going to share. Bear with me, guys, here. They have started arriving, Monique. Not my home. Interesting you say that, because if you think about it, that whole region, I mean, think of the big players in there. The Russians are there, now the Chinese, the Americans, of course, the EU, then you have Iran, Saudi, all these different people all playing power games with each other. So Mazar-e-Sharif, God bless, is up here. Kabul is down here toward the edge of the country. So they've taken all these towns. So the orange or yellow, depending on how it looks over there, has fallen. Yes, Fort Campbell, the Marines, Fort Polk, I'm sure may get a call. I don't know if Fort Hood got a call, but we've got a lot of troops going there, and the primary mission is to get our friends and citizens out. The fact that the 800 people who are already in country, most of whom were Marine Corps, was not sufficient to ensure the protection of our people means that the Pentagon and the intelligence agencies are seeing something a lot worse than the media is, or the media hasn't fully reported it yet. Okay, you're in Fort Knox too, so. Monique, I think it went in the trillions. I honestly believe it went in the trillions. If anyone actually has a number, throw it up there. But yeah, it was This is kind of a mess. So essentially, government is controlling this area here, but you notice Kabul is government forces and popular uprisings all left the city. The Taliban seized government and military buildings. There was no resistance. These guys are just running. Hey, Independent, thanks for joining us. Hey, Donna. Yeah, and this is a big mess for sure. Unfortunately, our boys and girls are going to have to go back there to try to get them out. Hopefully, I'll give kudos that they're at least stating very clearly that their mission is to get our people out. And I can say unofficially that they're probably going to, and this is just my opinion, do exactly what they did in Vietnam, take our friends, as many as they can, out. My parents, yes. The Monique, the BBC, sorry, he heard the UPS truck. Yeah, the Taliban are known for their ruthlessness. It's supposed to be a temporary mission. I don't know if it is, but that's a lot of troops for an evac, and that means they're expecting something like what happened in Saigon. So, yeah, 3,000 troops to evacuate. And Joe, you have a good point. You know, decisions from the past come back to bite us, and here we are. Actually, the war in Afghanistan was one of the few wars where fathers and sons, or daughters, or moms and daughters, however you want to say it, parents and children, have successively served in the same war. Because you figure after 9/11, you know, young soldiers went overseas, served there. If their kids were 4, 5, 6 at the time, maybe 10 years old, the kid became a military person, they got sent. So this is a very strange situation. Okay, here we go. This is USNI News. The Pentagon is sending 3,000 troops, 2 Marine Corps battalions to aid in support in the evacuation of the embassy in Kabul. One from the Army as well. They will move to Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul within the 24 to 48 hours. This includes the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit currently deployed with the USS Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group, which happens to be in the Gulf of Oman. They were probably making little circles to see how the pullout went. And when it started going sideways, they're like, all right, we're going to have to go evacuate people. Kirby described the effort as a temporary mission with a narrow focus. Pentagon is also sending about 1,000 personnel from the Air Force and Army to assist in handling Afghan visas in Qatar. So I guess they're trying that. That makes sense. That's smart. Qatar is a friend of the United States, so they're probably moving whoever they can get their hands on to get out. Well, Klingon, you know, it's funny you say that. I've got personal friends who went there and then went back as contractors because they knew the terrain, they knew the militias, and they went back with companies, with politicians or whoever, and they're like, we did our part. You know, I guess that's kind of how they take it, but that's small consolation to anyone who lost troops there, and this is the end result of it. They probably will not be brought home. We'll probably move them to Europe. Yeah, hard to say where they're going. It's all about the poppy money. Well, yeah, that's lucrative in that part of the world. So yeah, not that we need any more, you know, derivatives of the poppy out and about our country. We have enough problems, but yeah, that's definitely part of it. And that's how the Taliban make a lot of their funding, is they have farmers grow the poppy and then they sell it. Hey, Liberty Linda, thanks for joining. So yeah, they have one infantry brigade combat team out of Fort Bragg going to Kuwait. Air Force and Army have 1,000 personnel. Movements come amid reports that the Taliban has taken several key cities within Afghanistan as the U.S. continues its withdrawal. The purpose here is to help with the reduction of civilian personnel out of the embassy. That is not the same as a non-combatant evacuation operation where you're moving a massive amounts of people who aren't necessarily U.S. government employees. The other thing is we're going to be doing is helping the State Department, again, accelerate the process for special immigrant visas. And Joe, this is true. You know, the improper use of a lot of this stuff makes it difficult for people who genuinely need these products for, you know, comfort or pain management or their well-being. Unfortunately, in the hands of the Taliban, it's not going to be used for meds. It'll be it's cheaper to produce. It's funny, not my home. When England had, the UK had Afghanistan, they used to use the opium from the poppies to placate China and keep the Chinese in line. And now we're seeing the Chinese creating massive amounts of fentanyl and then shipping it to the United States. So, you know, great way to weaken a country is to you know, get them all stoned, I guess. You take your people out first, then you boogie. Yeah. Yeah, so they're anyway, so now our troops are going back in, and mind you, there's some reports I haven't put up there yet. This is what Gates plan to grow on all of them. Who knows? Independent, that's an interesting concept, is to kind of make that person, you know, make a bunch of legal drugs or illegal stuff in the country. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Mr. Gates. Many interpreters were left behind. Donna, that's absolutely correct. The ones that were able to get out with their families, some were not, especially in the further reaching areas. Yeah, Joe, absolutely valid. Yeah, it's the misuse that creates the problem. But Donna, yeah, a lot of people were left. People, even the soldiers, the military was trying to get them out of the country. I've heard off the record from other service members that they've been able to get a lot of them into. Not into the U.S. They got them into Turkey, or they got them into Kazakhstan, or, you know, they called some friends of friends who were able to arrange temporary papers and get people not necessarily to the U.S. but out. But they can't get them all. It's holy cow, Monique. $200 for 120 pills. Klingon prisons. Yeah. Oh, well, you don't think all these big farms and these doomsday bunkers made from old missile silos? I don't know about you guys. I got a really good gig, but I don't have $2.3 million to buy a missile silo zombie apocalypse bunker. But somebody's buying them. I wonder who. It's probably the same people you're referring to, that they're set for, you know, hey, Yardbirds, I'm sorry. I saw you go by real quick, and I wasn't sure if I saw the name right. Jimmy Page, everyone wanted to be. Yeah. So, so in any case, yeah, it's someone's buying those big zombie bunkers, that's for sure. So in any case, we've got lots of. Let me pull up a map here real quick because I will. Oh shoot, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me hide that. All right, I'm going to pull up a map, and just so you guys can kind of think about. Oh, doggone it! Awesome. There we go. Share screen. Woo! Technology. Yeah, and Joe, that's true. If they had legalized certain other meds, or at least regulated them like FDA regulation, where it wasn't, what is it, Title 1 or Cat 1? I can't remember what it's called, or Title 4, whichever one's the most stringent. You probably wouldn't need to buy so many meds from the big med companies. So, yeah, it makes you wonder: is there other things at play? It's kind of hard to speculate. I wanted to show you guys this map, and just look at how this plays out here. So right now, Kabul is here, and so our guys are going to have to fly. Let's see, they would have to fly. They're flying over. They're not going to fly over Iran because Iran doesn't like us. So they're probably going to have to go around the Gulf of Oman. Pakistan will let us fly over and getting into Kabul. Or they come up through India, but still they have to go over Pakistan. They could go through Turkmenistan. They'd probably let us for this kind of situation. But look at the players here. Look who's all. I'm going to back out a little bit. So you got China shares a border with Afghanistan, Iran, and then right up here is Russia behind that museum's logo. Schedule 2, thank you. So there's a lot of interest. This is kind of a crossroads between India, between China. You got Russia and Kazakhstan up here. You have Iran. The problem is it goes both ways. If the Taliban consolidate the way they did and they start organizing and branching out, you're now going to see terror attacks in China. You're going to see movement in Tajikistan. You're going to see Turkmenistan. You're going to see these problems go into Pakistan and India. So, Dr. Kimrifu. Yeah, and that's interesting. But apparently you can, yeah, it's, I don't know, Joe. It doesn't make sense to me either. But just keep in mind, you're going to have a lot of these big players in this country. And you're going to have what we have in Syria, which is just to the side. You're going to have big players all flying around and shooting at whatever in vicinity of one another. And that's an invitation for the big boys and girls to get into fights with each other. So I'm curious what happens. I'm hoping that we don't see what we saw in the early 2000s, where Afghanistan became a nesting place for a-holes who then came and blew up, who then came and attacked the U.S. or were blamed for the attack in the U.S. or go somewhere else. Because they can export their terrorism or their expertise to other places and cause more instability than we already have. So we'll see where that goes. That's definitely going to be a interesting thing to watch. Hopefully our troops can get in, get out, and get our people and friends, whoever they're supposed to be getting out in a timely manner. This one's interesting, guys, and a lot of people have already pointed this out. Foreign and domestic groups contribute heightened terrorist threat. Now, notice the verbiage here, guys. Foreign and domestic. So, yeah, the Taliban, the Al-Qaedas, but they're also hinting at foreign and domestic terrorists from individuals and groups engaged in grievance-based violence. Warned of the influence of online forums and social media to spread of violent extremist narratives, including those suggested resistance to the Rona pokes. They're people who may want to replicate September 11th from overseas. I think somewhere down here they mentioned that the There's leftist groups who may want to destroy or disturb parts of the country. The right-wing groups want to overturn the election. So basically, I read through this and it's like, so basically everyone's a threat. Okay, Joe, yeah, go take care of your pop, man. So in any case, it noted, for instance, that as the September 11th anniversary approaches, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula recently released its first English language copy of Inspire magazine in over 4 years, demonstrating that foreign terror organizations continue efforts to inspire people in the U.S. to be susceptible to violent extremist influences. So I find that interesting. It said that U.S. adversaries, including the Russians, Chinese, and Iranians, have increased efforts to sow discord by distributing conspiracy theories. Here, we're still blaming them for, basically, if it sounds stupid, don't agree with it. But you think about it, countries like to screw with each other, right? This is something that has gone on since the beginning of history. True story, Vladimir Lenin, his first name was Vladimir, was a student of Karl Marx. He got chased out of Russia because he pissed off the Tsar and they were going to cut his head off. So he got chased away. During World War I, Russia was becoming a major pain in the ass to Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So the Germans, and guys, correct me if my timeline is wrong, the Germans went and found Lenin, snuck him back into Russia to disrupt Russia so that Russia would have other problems so they could focus on the Western Front. The Western Front. And lo and behold, his protege Stalin wound up sacking Berlin at the end of World War II. So countries have been messing with each other's leadership for millennia. No surprise there. The Russians, Chinese, Iranians, they all benefit in different ways from messing with us. We benefit messing with them. So I don't know where the DHS is going, where they say, well, it could be right wing, it could be left wing, it could be foreign. I don't know what to say to that. But they are stating that there's a lot of online conspiracy theories. Imagine that. Concerning COVID, the vaccines. Oh, I said the C words, and I'm gonna get a penalty box thing. Social media extremists have flooded platforms. Yeah, it's just on and on. It's just an excuse for them to poke in your stuff. So I would highly recommend being gray. Gray man / gray woman, or just do your thing and don't say anything really outrageous, because you're just going to upset these characters. But in any case, yeah, that's and DHS, ABC News had a different spin on it. It's not very much different, but let's see. Yeah, 9/11 anniversary, COVID measures could spark terror attacks. Law enforcement is concerned about false narratives and conspiracy theories. Yeah, lay low, Donna. That's right. Don't attract too much attention to yourself. Be mindful of, what you say and how you act, kind of thing. Nobody wants to attract trouble from people who can cause pain for you. But I do want to share this, because I got sent this the other day, and I wanted to share that with you. I don't know, can you guys see that? It came out blurry. Hold on, let me finagle this for a second here. My concern is you're going to start seeing people let me see if I can get this to preview. There we go. Ta-da. In theory, it's going to pop up here. There we go. Got it. Bam. me remove that. And this got sent to me the other day. Well, independent, what I'm thinking is I'm not doing anything illegal by telling people to be ready to pay attention. Personally, preparedness should transcend politics and color and religion. Truthfully, all the major religions actually preach. So wait, Lalo, I guess I meant as far as being targeted. Woo! The chat went by really fast, guys. Sorry. Yeah. And it could be a spoof notice. It could be. Again, you get some folks with some software and some time to kill, and they may. And howdy, Stuart. I replied to your comment and then just realized, oh yeah, hey, Stuart. Here we go. I have to do it. They are still operating where people. Yeah, and that's. And Joe, we can try to be independent. Yeah, definitely. Hold on, Donna. I saw Lalo and then. Okay, so here's a good question. Independent, I'm going to throw you up there. How do we wake up others while laying low? You can change the way. Yeah. Yeah, there. If you didn't get the pinch, I think just Josh loves to call it the pinch. If you didn't get the pinch, and they seem to be pushing new pinch versus the pinch that's based on the science that we've had for 200 years, and that special pinch that you have to get pinched twice, and then it does things to you, and they're really pushing that. And not the pinches that are like, oh yeah, we've been doing this for 100 years. We just put the new cootie in the pinch, and there you go. So I don't know why this big focus on something that may or may not be as effective as they say it was, but in any case, yeah, it's how do we wake others up? Laying low. You can't, and that's a good point. So you could change the dialogue, the way you approach people. There's some folks I can, just knowing them, I can talk to them very plainly about homesteading or farming or preparedness, and they don't freak out. Others, I would angle it depending on where they are in their paying attentionness, their alertness to what's going on around them. You can take an angle of, remember that hurricane where all those people freaked out and then they were fighting over toilet paper? Or remember when the cootie showed up and they shut everything down and people fought over dumb things? Why don't we? Well, and again, not my home, very good. You can go to the person and say, remember those shortages, their disruption? Hey, Harvey, you need to have some inventory. I wouldn't say preps if they're going to get scared. Inventory for contingencies like that, and see if that kind of makes them think of it a little differently. I think media and TV has made it sensationalistic, where they're like, "Oh, doomsday preppers," and it's a dude dressed like a knight with antennas and tinfoil on his head, and they're like, "That's now." I don't want to be like that guy. And that's really not what it is. It's, somebody asked me, how did they put it? I don't know why people are hoarding toilet paper. And I said, I don't either. I mean, I have stock, but I'm not hoarding. And they asked me, well, what's the difference? I said, the preppers were watching the hoarders fight over toilet paper when they turned off the lights on the businesses. We just bought it over time. We didn't go out in a panic and fill our pickup truck. Also, we actually know where our stuff is for the most part, whereas someone who's hoarding, they're just buying in a blind panic. Yeah, if you change the message, I think you'll start reaching a little more of the mainstream, which in my mind, if if you can, right, planning ahead is different than acquiring junk. Absolutely. So, it's just, two of us at the house now. So you go to Sam's or Costco, you buy the big potty paper. That's a month and a half right there. So next payday, I just happen to pick up a second one. Well, now I got potty paper probably for a year. Shit. Am I hoarding? Not really. I didn't go and buy 50 of the things. I'm just buying them as I go. And that's if you start talking to folks in that context and tell them, hey, look, oh, I lost my mouse here. There you go. And Yardbirds. And that's the problem is, and you have a valid point there, Yardbirds, is chances are if we alert them now, they're behind the curve, right? Whether it's materials or equipment or knowledge or inventory, if something were to happen today, like what just happened in Haiti, where you live, and let's say your house was intact, okay, we'll play that war game. Your house is intact, but stuff's going on around you. I bet on any given block for any of us in the subdivisions or out in the country, I'm sure the country will do a little better up front. Any subdivision, you're going to see 3 out of 12 houses may be squared away and the rest are going to panic. We keep seeing this over and over. So yeah, and Donna brings up a good point. It's kind of a downward spiral. So the only thing you can do at this juncture is make people informed. But the way we all talk to each other within this community of preparedness and readiness, you may have to change the dialogue a little bit and get creative in how you explain it to other people. But then the lights do come on. I've actually had it happen where I told someone who was not into preparedness at all at the beginning of the cootie last year, I said, this is going to be disruptive. You should prepare for like a hurricane. And he looked and said, right. And that's true. And Stuart brings a good point. It takes time to prepare and organize, but it's not impossible. And personally, if I've had that one friend of mine who was a coworker, I said, I would get enough for a hurricane box. And he never lived in hurricane country. So I said, look, I would have, so many toilet paper, so many this, so many that. He said, that's a good idea. I just explained it like that, just in case something happens. And then sure enough, they did the cootie lights out on us last year. He ran into me at a store a few months later, like when they were starting to open up again. And he said, dude, that saved us so much stress because his spouse was starting to freak. They had little kids. He's like, no. And he said, I got this stupid, ugly Tupperware and popped it open. And he said, I had amenities for 2 weeks. And he said, okay, don't freak out. We'll add to this as we go. And now that person's thinking like that. So he'll go to the store and get cans of corn and pasta, and he'll be like, I'm going to get 2 extra of these, 1 of these. You're right. Joe's completely valid that, and whoever Yardbirds and Stewart, time's running out. But even if they have 3 days, it'll be better than no days. Those are the ones you're going to see at the store fighting or getting beat up by the National Guard because they cut line or something. And yeah, then Joe put Joe's up and then I clicked it again like an idiot and took it down. There we go. It's letting them figure things out and filling in the holes. Right. And what you do is make it their idea. You say, you know what I did when this hurricane hit or that flood hit was this. That wouldn't be a bad idea. Maybe you should talk to the missus or talk to your husband and see if they jump. Yeah, and that's another one. The firearms. Hold on, Yardbird put something up here. I have people in my immediate family on the 2 extremes. My brother is where I am as far as, yeah. But he's been through the hurricanes. He's been multiple deployments. He's seen government's infrastructure just go, and he's seen the results of that. And the other one relative is, I literally has told me, I can't think of that. It's too stressful. I prefer not to think of it, and whatever happens. And I mean, I'm glad, like, you have faith that things will work out. But, you know, when the Lord spoke to Joseph, he told him, hey, 7 years, bro. He didn't say it like that, obviously, but 7 years, man, go stock up. And he did it. And ta-da, you know, in the ancient texts, it says, yeah, they did okay. So native, oh, hold on. You guys zoomed past me. Let me see, back up here a second. Klingon. Yeah. What you would need us. And that's a good way to do it. What would you need if you couldn't get to? Okay. I saw your second post right after the first one. and there's it does feel like Old Testament times. A lot of fire and brimstone lately. Also, and again, Joe brings up a good point, because I've had some younger folks over here that said they were part of the freeze and went, yeah, I didn't like that. Now, it turned out this person was also a firefighter, and one day I might have him on the show because he's a very interesting dude. But he's a firefighter, and he said he always had his like fireman's emergency kit. So he said, I amped that out. So when the freeze was coming, he was like, I saw what happened out west in Texas. So before he got hit, they stocked up. They said the only thing they were missing was flush water to flush. But then the power went out in the apartments, and so all the security doors where, you know, you put your little badge and you can get in and your apartment's safe, all failed. And I think the Angry Prepper even mentioned it during the lights out situations. There were people who didn't belong in the apartments who were in the apartments. And so they had that happen. They had some shady characters roaming the hallways of the apartments. So he said, and after that, he was like, what do you recommend for a firearm? And that conversation was what spawned my video on how to pick your first handgun, which I posted a few weeks ago, was because of the conversation I had with this person. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and get what you need before the stupid begins. Get out of the city, yeah. And what's funny is Texas gets hit by hurricanes, and you've seen Texas gets clobbered by hurricanes, and they always respond really well. And then they had this freeze, and everyone got stupid. Nobody knew what to do. And I'm like, it's the same stuff, guys. You don't have a flashlight. You want to wait for the next hurricane to buy one? Don't be pendejo. Just get the flashlight. Yeah. Anyway, by the way, Texas is instituting the tax-free weekends for hurricane season. So there's certain designated weekends. Check your local laws. I'm understanding after the Rona and the cootie made its way around the country, other states are doing a ready weekend where you're tax-free. So check your local ordinances. You might actually save some money. I don't know which states are doing it outside of Texas and Louisiana, but you may want to jump on that if you can, guys. But in any case, yeah, change the way you're talking to these folks. Change the dialogue, and see if you can say things a different way. And it's not that you're sugarcoating it; it's that some people, they're confused. They don't understand what's going on. And the message, if you throw a very coarse or blunt message at them, you might spook them. They'll get more confused. Whereas if you say, well, like I did to my colleague, if you just get a week's worth of this and you put it in a separate bin. In Texas, folks were stealing neighbors' firewood. That wouldn't surprise me. You know, okay, true story. When I was a kid camping upstate New York, my old man was an old GI. He was a BAR gunner back in the day, right? Not a big man, but he was very meticulous with his outdoor stuff. And he went and cut the most beautiful pile of firewood with a cane machete, which I now have. I can cut trees down with the thing. Perfect little split logs. He worked for hours. So he made 3 stacks, and one of our camping neighbors was coming up from the lake or the beach, and they came up and they just grabbed, in their bathing suits, grabbed all their, yeah, that's a good one, Joe. Basically, they stole 1/3 of his firewood in the first pile. So he got pissed off, and being an old soldier, he was steaming, right? So he's sitting there watching them, and they're making a fire that night, laughing at us. And I'm like, are you going to say anything? He said, nah, I'm smarter than they are. Okay. He said, wait for tomorrow. The next day, I kid you not, those of you who live where there's poison ivy and poison sumac, he collected all the wood and literally stacked it. He even got himself a little with the poison ivy. He wound up with a little burn. He put all the firewood in the poison ivy, and it was a big bush. The next day, he's sitting there smoking, and he watches them at the far end, and they go into the firewood in shorts, bikinis, waist deep in poison ivy. Took his firewood. They left that night. That 2 a.m, they were packing up their tents and everything. And my dad smacks me on the shoulder because I'm passed out. He goes, hey son, look, go see. And so I opened the window, and he said, ándale cabrones, this is what they get, pendejos. I'm like, what did you put it in? He's like, yeah, it was a poison ivy. He showed me the next day. Then you know what we did? We put on gloves, went and got the firewood, and used it to burn a fire out on the outskirts of the campsite, get rid of the mosquitoes. But yeah, that's one of those stories of my old man I still remember. I think my brother was a baby, so he wouldn't remember it, but that was a crazy story. He was ingenious like that. So yeah, I mean, not that you should booby trap people, but technically, if they were paying attention and had skills, they would have said, that firewood is not accessible anymore. I'm going to keep going. But no, they had to steal. So I hope no less than 5 new gun owners. Hold on. Whoo. Hold on. That was the chat went by super fast. I wasn't expecting that. It seems to be like it'll go. There we go. To 60 years. This is true. This is true. Guys, if you have not yet, what are suggestions for big items to prep? Hey, Don, I'm going to share this one just so we can have a conversation about it. Ooh, you're on a fault line. Okay, so is it an active fault line, Donna? Because if it is, if the earth shifts, right? So you have different types of faults. You have upthrown faults where basically one goes over. You have them where they shift 90 degrees. And you even have some where one blatantly goes out of the ground, like kind of in the rock, outside of Hoover Dam. If you look at the rock formations, you'll see them buckled, and then you'll see another rock like that. Okay, so big prep items. If the earth shifts significantly, water pipes are going to get broken, right? So it doesn't matter if the water treatment plant's still running, and it probably won't, but even if it is, think about your pipes are in the ground and you get a shift by 2 inches and that's going to crack water mains. So my daughter and her boyfriend, they also forgot flushing water. They were all prepped up because they like to camp. So they doubled down before the freeze, but they needed flushing water. They forgot that. You get those water cubes, the blue ones. They're like $15 at Walmart. I'd actually get them at Walmart, because if you have to ship them because of their size, Amazon typically costs more. You could, and remember, you can fill those with tap water, right? And then cycle them out. So, if you fill them up and then after 3 weeks, dump them out, or whatever period of time, so they don't get funky. Water would be one. Dehydrated foods. I also recommend, and guys, anyone who wants to throw in a recommendation here for Donna to help her out, by all means, go ahead. So I've had for years, the little Coleman stoves with the green tanks, the little stupid green tanks that you screw in. I've had one of those forever in various forms. I recently got, if you can get a generator and have a safe place to run it without getting carbon dioxide in your house, yes. Few drops of bleach, that's very good. I think it's, what is it, like a 1/4 teaspoon for a gallon of water? Because they say 3 drops, but that doesn't help me. Solar generator is good if you can find one or make one. But get those water jugs, and you can fill them and stack them. You need water for flushing, for hygiene, for cleaning dishes. And guys, I would recommend everyone get a stash of paper products like you're going on a picnic. I actually have a stash of plates, bowls, utensils that I bought them for a Cub Scout thing when my boys were little. And it turned out we never used them. And so I have this package of like infinite spoons, forks, and knives, plastic. Because think, if you're running out of water, you're going to have to cook whatever you're cooking on, right? So if you have a camp stove, like Monique is saying, camp stove, bottles of propane, right? Paper will save your water. Your plastic, you can junk it. You can wipe it down if you have water available to spare. Great. Not the paper plates, but like the little utensils. If not, throw them. Stuart has a good one. We were about to do that for the freeze, a tent that will fit in your living room, like a little dome tent. If it gets very cold outside, you can put the tent inside your living room and stay in there. Now you're kind of warming a smaller space. Also, if your windows are broken, it kind of protects you a little bit, so you're not camping in your backyard. You're technically in your house. And Donna, for the stove, not just the camp stove with the little propane like Monique recommended, but I recently bought a butane stove. It's a single burner, and it has a different can. So I have 2 types of fuel that I can use on 2 different stoves. So in the event I have to refill or I have to replenish, and I go to the store and I'm like, man, there's no propane, but there's butane, I can take those. And it's the same concept about not having every firearm the same caliber. I have 9s, 40s, 380s, 22s. If I can't find 9mm, I can get a different caliber. At least one of my firearms is up. Monique, good one. Oil lamps. Be careful with fire, though. Don't knock them down. Oh, Monique put 2, one behind the other. I clicked the wrong one. There we go. And by the way, Donna, you can go, if you go to Hobby Lobby or Walmart, Walmart's cheaper. They have those stupid little round lights. Before the freeze, I put the little round lights in the little glass holders. You could get a pack of those little stupid things for like $5, and it's like 100 stupid little candles. And I spread them around the house in the little glass holder if we lost power very briefly, so we were lucky. But I was prepared. I had a clicky lighter. I was prepared to go around and light them all, so we're not walking around in the dark. And then once the power comes on, you just blow them all out. You should get a few hours out of them. And you only need 1 or 2 to create ambient light. Unless you're doing some advanced like electrical soldering. Having a candle in the kitchen and a candle in the bathroom and a candle in the living room, you can at least walk around and not kill yourself by tripping on your dog or tripping. Yeah. Open carry goes into effect. Okay, not my home. Take care. Thanks for stopping in. Oil lamps are also help heat the space, correct? I'll do 10 trick a few times. Our furnace went out. Dude, Joe, okay, for those of you who haven't seen Joe in the chat, he's got a bizarre sense of humor. Now, see, that one is going to come back. We're going to have to recycle that one because that one's too good to not use again. But yeah, oil lamps. Also, Donna, I don't know what your laws are in your... I don't know what your laws are in the area. If you can own a pew, I would recommend getting one. Again, the reason I made that video was because the conversation with they knew I wasn't being funny. That's how I kept. Hey, you know what, man? More power to you. You all are grown adults. But oh, here we go. Yeah, see, these are great recommendations, guys. And Donna, if you hadn't noticed, this community is super collaborative. So when you have questions like that, make sure, and by the way, sometimes the chat blows by the speaker. So if you ask a good question and they don't respond to it, they may not have seen it. So you may have to repeat it. I actually saw that one. So used to Joe, it doesn't even real. But in any case, Donna, if you can, and it doesn't have to be fancy. One firearm I recommend very often is a break open shotgun, the double barrel that you just kind of push the button and you put 2 shells. I mean, the shotgun is one of the simplest firearms to learn. It's one of the more difficult to master when you get into the more advanced kind of stuff. Even if you can't buy a gun you really want. Yeah, and that's, Joe raises a good point. If you can, a lot of people have this terrible habit of saying you have to get a Glock or you have to get an AR-15 or you have to get a Beretta or whatever. The truth of the matter is, ask yourself the question, what's legal for you so you don't get yourself in trouble, 1. 2, what do you have experience in? What's your competency with the different types of firearms? It doesn't make sense to go get a handgun, but you've been shooting shotguns since you were 10. Well, just get a new shotgun because you know how to use it. It's going to be familiar. You don't want to have to start a new learning curve. Oh, the deet slams. You don't want to have to start a whole new learning curve if something happens and then at 2 a.m. you're trying to get up, remember how to make widgets work. You want to be able to get up and do something familiar. If firearms are not an option, and there are various reasons legitimately. Oh, well, if you've got, you know what you could do, Donna, if you hadn't picked a good one yet, go rent a few. I've actually, is what I recommend to a lot of new shooters. They'll kind of tell me what their experience is, what they're hoping to do with it, the size preference. And I'll say, okay, here's 4 or 5 recommendations. Go to the range, rent them, touch them, sniff them, whatever it is. Click them because they don't like you doing that. And one of them will call to you. There'll be a firearm that you'll be like, I like the way this feels. This handles right. It comes up naturally. That's the one you want, if it's in your budget. My brother has the full size is a G2C or the compact, the one that replaced the PT-111. I don't remember, Joe. But yeah, and if you're new to shooting or you don't have a lot of experience with handguns versus, say, a deer rifle, spend the 30, 40 bucks and get a class. No ammo in these parts. What about shotgun shells, Donna? I find those in droves. Even bird shot. I mean, bird shot obviously is meant for birds and clays, not for larger problems. But inside the confines of a bedroom, a house, an apartment, it works. It'll do things. 200 bucks with ammo. Yeah. The G2 is a compact. Okay. So yeah. So some kind of protective item would be a good idea as well, Donna. And if you can get different, I wish we were able to have guns in Canada. Now, Monique, I don't know the Canadian laws as well. I believe a simple shotgun or a deer rifle is certainly within the reach of most folks in Canada, because I have buddies who are from Calgary and the Western provinces, and they say it's relatively not impossible to get certain types. Obviously, getting an AR or something like that, but that if you're looking for an option, and again, it depends on the legality. Now, obviously, if society collapses and the cops have run away, okay, it's still hard. And you know what? A shorter hunting rifle, Mossberg, has what they call, oh God, and I have one in the safe, MVP. So it's chambered in 2 calibers. It's a little bolt action rifle. It's about the length of a carbine. It's not a very long gun. It's chambered in 5.56 or in 7.62 NATO or 308. But it accepts an AR mag, but it's a bolt action rifle. So technically it's in compliance pretty much everywhere. The question is the magazine capacity. But even if it's a 5-round mag, you buy 4 or 5 of those, that you can lay down some defense for yourself if you need to. More than likely, especially if a person is already in your home and you discharge a firearm, it is phenomenally loud. If you've never shot indoors, yeah. And Joe, it is the MVP. I bought that in 5.56 for my son to train him. And then I moved from that to the AR before he went to basic. So he kind of knew the M4 platform. And I wound up keeping the MVP. Mine has iron sights. And I'm a big fan of having iron sights, even if you decide to put a scope later, because scopes break. And typically the iron sights don't. Running bolt guns is a lot of fun. I have a guard dog and I sleep with my machete. Machete definitely will work. Also consider a hunting slingshot, which you should be able to get at a store or you can make one. I would use glass marbles as your ammunition. You may or may not kill someone, but that will hurt like holy hell. And also, if someone's coming in and they hear, if it hits the wall behind them, it's going to sound like a gun went off. I mean, think about it. Taking a marble at 700 feet per second and bam, off a wall, it's going to crack and make a phenomenal sound. And it may give you, that's a good standoff weapon. Another one is, even a sling. I mean, these are now, we're going into some ancient weaponry here, right? But although I'm a big fan, like I said, my dad taught me to cut trees down with a machete. A crossbow, seen Bernie, have you seen Bernie? I think it's in, hold on. I'm having a mouse error. My mouse is the devil. Hold on. Somebody put, and you can do that. That's very valid. And also it's very quiet, right? It's much quieter than discharging a firearm. Yeah, and there's a lot of option. But if you a guard dog, now also keep in mind in an emergency, if your dog is meant to protect you, the dog could get injured, right? Dogs do get hurt. On the ranches out here for the hogs, there's a protective vest, and I have no idea how much these things cost. I know there's one that's legitimately bulletproof. I'm not talking about that. It's like a puffy vest to prevent them from being bitten. Oh, okay. Bernie the Bushmaster on Discord. Oh, there's another question. Any archers out there can answer Donna's question? I don't think so, but I don't know enough about it to really help. Yeah, and Joe, I actually built one with an old style carry handle. So, but yeah, if anyone knows archer cross, oh, here we go. Recurves are harder. Yeah, and you may want to just, Donna, you may want to go. A lot of these archery places have an indoor archery range. So tell them, I want to get into archery. And tell them I was interested in crossbows, and they may help you because you can shoot those indoors typically and not blow a hole in a wall, and see what they recommend. And not hard to learn quick. You can practice if you have a little room and a target. And again, it's not a bad idea when you think about it, because it's quiet. It's technically not a firearm, but it's a standoff weapon. So like a machete, a blade of any kind of hand weapon is typically going to be a contact weapon. You're going to be within 3 feet of the other person, maybe 5, unless you're using like a battle axe or a Roman plenum or something that you're going to chuck at them and kill them somewhere else. But having a weapon that can, when I say standoff, can keep someone at a distance, that can have value, because now you're not exposed to direct contact with a foe. They're going to have to engage you at distance with whatever they have. Again, thinking about a crossbow because I'm not that strong. Yeah, Monique, that may not be a bad option. And like I said, even the hunting slingshot melee weapons are hard to learn. Yeah, if you want to, especially if you may have to be protecting someone who's ill or cannot escape themselves. Yeah. Proper even sticks too. Yeah. So yeah, do a little homework. Again, reach out to a lot of these folks on this chat. I mean, I've chatted with all the folks that are in there now, and they can give different ideas. But yeah, if you cannot get a firearm reasonably easily or without undue fanfare, find other options. I know someone who actually made their own slingshot because the guy was really good at woodworking. And he made this thing that he could bust beer bottles at like 50 yards. I mean, accurately, it was a ping with little glass marbles, what kids play with. They're hard, and if you find them, you can recover them. The glass or ceramic. Rocks, you can use a rock in a pinch, but a rock is typically irregular, and they won't fly quite as well. I'm trying to think of what else you can use. I guess if you take a lacrosse stick and you what do you call, seal up the net, so it's basically a pocket, and you practice, you could probably fling a good sized rock with that thing. Because I mean, I've been hit with lacrosse balls, and that was no joke. That took the air out of me. That did not feel good. So I mean, you could get ingenious. You could start playing with this, but that's something that you can deal with a danger 30, 40 feet away and not have to be right up on someone who may try to take your knife or your machete. And also, I mean, even if they get to you, if you've dinged them 3 or 4 times with a rock, with a batch of rocks, ball bearings, yes, ball bearings would work. Shoot, I would go, what's that, a 1/2 inch? So maybe, what is it, 2.5 centimeters per inch? Do I have that right? So what, 1.5 centimeters, 1.25 centimeters? Maybe a 125 millimeter ball bearing, something like that. You could plink the crap out of someone with that. Yeah, I use rebar and yeah. Oh, hex nut. There's another one. I mean, you could use ball bearings. So yeah. And again, diversify your defensive items as well. But make sure, going back to Donna's original question, water for flushing, for sanitation, for consumption, meds, basic meds. Hey, D9, how are you? Oh, yeah, that just went right over us. D9 just joined us. But heck, protective items, both up close and at a distance, so you can stand off a danger. And by the way, the danger may not be a person. It could be a pack of dogs. How many people, runners, have we seen get attacked by dogs because they just ran after the dude? You plink a dog with a hex nut, and you're probably going to change its channel. So they're also defensive items, water, the food, different options for fuel. And if you have a big propane grill outside, that when they use the big tanks, there's an adapter to go from the big tanks to the small connection, so you can use it in lieu of the little green bottles if you can't find them. So, hey, Five Virgins, how are you? So, yeah, there's, if you start with those basics, and in the event the fault line becomes active, and because I'm thinking the first thing that'll go is the water pipes. Yeah, so the water would probably be the worst thing, and I would be very low key about it. And those blue squares are stackable. Don't get the ones that look like gas cans, because you can't stack them. I learned that the hard way. I now have one of those stupid looking ones that it kind of just sits there. There is also I don't know what else to call it, kind of like a bladder that you can put in a tub. So if you have an extra bathroom, you put it in there and fill it with tap water, right? You can drink tap water. It may not be awesome, but it's potable. If you suspect there's danger, fill it ahead and have it waiting. The worst case is you spill it out, or use it for some other purpose. But your tub can hold a phenomenal amount of water. And this bladder, you just fill it and it fills up your tub, and it has a little hand pump, and you just, and, dispense the water. So I would think the water, the food, basic meds, a defensive item. If somebody figures out you have something, they may try to take it, and ways to cook. If you start there, especially the water, I think that if you have a fault happen and all the pipes get cut, you're going to have a problem very quickly. You may also want to think of a camping potty. So Water Bob, thank you. Yeah, that's what it's called. My dad used to call it the water cow. He came up. There we go. So yeah, but guys, yeah, well, Five Virgins, yeah, the world is rife with misbehavior, and it begets unhappiness, basically. Keep in mind, guys, the supply chain is still jacked up. I went to the auto dealership the other day. We were just eyeballing vehicles. There was one new lot on a Ford dealership that not a year ago had 500 new autos because of the chip shortage. Is still an issue. GM's in the same boat. Toyota's in the same boat. If you're gonna, isn't water cow? No. Yeah, it came from my dad, so it probably was the water cow. He used to refer to that stupid looking one with the little red spigot that you'd hang from your tree, and he called it the water cow. So, but so we're still seeing disruptions in technology. I spoke to the meat manager at HEB out here, and he's close friends with the region guy, and he said even in Texas, in the middle of ranch country, there's still some disruptions on meat. He said we're not seeing it as much here because we're in the midst of the packing and beef and private farm country, but on the coasts you're going to feel it more because it has to get from here to there. There's still disruptions, guys, so pay attention. If you see things starting to disappear, make a note of it, and the next time you see it, if you use it and you need it, stock up on it. Yeah, if you have a pool, you can use the pool. I would put a cover on it and then extract water as you need. May have to filter it. The water buffalo. But yeah, there's still instability, guys. So make sure. I started doing dehydrating vegetables because I looked at my preps and realized I had a lot of canned veggies, but I didn't have, other than commercial, I didn't have others. So I pulled out the dehydrator I bought from a neighbor for $50. It was $200 dehydrator. He gave it to me for 50, and it works like a champ. So I've been dehydrating vegetables every night and then putting them in mason jars in the morning. So I have a longer term vegetable option. So thank you, Pilgrim. How's it going, man? Oh, it's a community pool. But you know what? If you have a community resource, then there can be a way to organize that reasonably so, and to keep other parties out of your resource. I have a lot of neighbors who are right now, if they have the appropriate land, are getting a small drilling company, because a lot of these guys are still looking for work, get a small rig, and they're drilling their own water well. And they're putting a solar, so the same setup you use for a hog or deer feeder, solar panel with the 12-volt battery, but instead of putting it to the spinner to kick the food out, they're putting it to a small pump on their water, and it kicks off on its own, and it just waters a part of his field, but it's always primed. And he said he does have a manual backup where he can take that solar pump off and put a manual pump in and get that going. So yeah, get creative. We're still going to see disruptions. The meat, he said, we're probably going to see disruptions into 2022. The price of oil and gas has been all over the map. It went up to 75, came down to 65, is going back up. It's really hard for companies to plan around that, much less us. Fuel, I posted on Instagram and on YouTube. My price here for regular was like $1.80, and outside of Texas and Louisiana, everybody was telling me it was $3.50, $4. Somebody said $5 somewhere. I don't know where the hell that was. So keep your cars filled and watch for this kind of stuff. I don't think we're done yet. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have more of the lights out situations because of the cootie. We're going to have more. Hey, Stuart, thanks. You be good, man. Be safe. And also, Joe brings up a good point here. On it, it's I think my mouse is dead. We're organizing. Collaborate. If you have friends, and even Joe and I were joking about this offline, if you're looking for a certain item and you can't find it, shoot a text to friends who may be able to find it in another city, have them ship it to you, Venmo them the money while we still have the ability to do so. I've been doing it with my brother and my daughter and sons. They're like, hey, I'm looking for MREs, or somebody's looking for certain types of boots or ammunition, and oof. Okay, we're at 21 for the white box 9mm over here. I can't find 45. I don't have a 45, but I can't find one. I couldn't find it if I wanted to. So, oof. Oh, well, the 5.7 is kind of a weird round too. 275 for gas by 5 virgins. So again, it's all over the map. Just go. I would recommend, if you have a break, go through your inventory and make sure that your products are where you need them. You're not missing anything. And, print out a list of what you ate last week. If you have one, write it down and then see if you actually have that in your storage. But, pay attention. It's still sketchy. And hey, hopefully a year from now, we'll all go back and say, hey, it's all good. But yeah, Joe found 32, which I haven't seen in forever. Gas is $4 up there. Oof. Yow. So, but yeah, collaborate with other folks. If you have family and friends in other places, they can ship things to you. Venmo them the money, or PayPal, or whatever the hell it is you use. And just take advantage of that while we still can and things are normalized. We never know what's going to happen. I mean, look at the poor folks in Haiti. They literally got clobbered middle of the night out of nowhere. And that's going to be a mess. And then you add lack of water, right? You saw how those streets were all buckled. So the water's gone. The electricity's gone. You give it 2 weeks, people are going to be peeing and pooping in wherever. And then you're going to have disease outbreaks. So hygiene, water, that's definitely important, guys. So we're at the 1:45 mark, 1:47 mark. So I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. This has been a great collaboration, and I thank you all for being out there and chatting back and forth. Thank you, Donna and Joe, for the great topics, and D9 as well. Everybody, it's zooming by now. By all means, collaborate. If you have any questions about any of my videos, theroamingprepper@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. Give me about a day to get to it. And I've been pretty good about responding to folks. Just be safe out there. Pay attention and try to educate folks who have not started doing this. Try and you, like a few people pointed out, you may have to use a different approach and find a different way of saying what you're trying to say so they don't panic. And instead they feel like it's almost their idea, like, wow, that's a really good idea. I think I need to do that. And don't make it about prepping and, the government and the Russians. Make it about, hey, you saw that hurricane? Look what just happened in Haiti. If those folks had water and food, they could get through it a little better. You put that bug in their head and hope their brains work. You may not be able to educate everyone, but you figure if for every one person who gets prepared for a couple of weeks, it's one less person you have to worry about breaking in your door. So be safe, guys. Y'all, Godspeed if you're on the road. D9, drive safe, man. I don't know if you're still on the road. Don't get in a wreck or anything. And y'all take care. I will see you guys next week. I'm hoping to do a Tuesday talk show. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it because of work, but I will. I'll see you guys later on. Y'all be safe. Take care.